What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Marquee on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, we've got Hayden.
Hello.
And this is an extension of our discussion from the previous episode because really we just wanted an excuse to gush more about Matilda the Musical. Now, before we get into the film itself, I want to give you a little bit of background for this whole project. So, Hayden, why don't you give us the backstory for Matilda the Musical?
Gladly. So, Matilda, if you are unaware, is based on the Roald Dahl novel of the same name. It was the last official novel that he wrote before his death. And personally, I think it is kind of one of his strongest works in general. And you might know it more from the Danny DeVito directed film from 1996, which also has a special place in my childhood. I watched that movie quite religiously. But one thing that film did was it really heavily Americanized the piece, which, Hollywood gonna Hollywood, but it's not enough to distract from the movie, but I do think that something got a little lost in translation. So in 2011, it was adapted. The book was adapted, I should say, into a musical that by the Royal Shakespeare Company, which then went to the West End, which then went to Broadway. And about 10 years later now, it has a film adaptation of that musical, of that book on Netflix right now in America, as I should say.
Yeah, I never actually watched the original film that often. I only kind of knew it by reputation, but once I heard that Netflix was distributing Matilda the Musical, I knew I had to get on this one immediately. So before we really dive in, do you want to give your general impressions of the film?
So I have been a fan of the musical for a long time now, since it came out. So it's been going on for about 12 years now. I first heard it when I was in high school, and already having loved the book, I was kind of just in from the get-go. And my first exposure was to the cast recording. And I was expecting to enjoy the show, but the lyrics that I had heard were just so impressive by Tim Minchin, and I've been a fan. So when I heard about the musical being adapted into a film, and I should also mention that this has the entire same creative team as the stage production. So director Matthew Warchus, book writer Dennis Kelly, and songwriter Tim Minchin were all quite involved with the film, returning to their roles as director and screenplay writers. So hopes were high, and I was really impressed with what they did. It gave me everything that I wanted in terms of an adaptation. It was overall very faithful, but at the same time, I think it knew what changes to make for making it a film, which is a trap that I think there's a trap that a lot of adaptations of musicals fall into, where they try to usually film this. They try to just film the stage show, and it comes across as awkward and uncomfortable. I can name names, but I won't. But this movie is one that recognizes it is a movie, and it also recognizes that it is a musical. So I think it does a very good balancing act of both mediums, and to me, it worked very, very well.
Without having seen a production of the musical, but just knowing like the genre in general, I would have to agree that this is arguably one of the best movie musicals that I've seen since Chicago. And I said as much the last time we talked about this.
Right.
But yeah, this was just overall this was just great. And I'm realizing now that, I mean, I've always been a fan of Tim Minchin as a musician, but he has like a specifically great talent writing songs for musicals. And yeah, the lyrics in pretty much all of these songs are like they're all bangers.
Right. One of the things that I have been kind of emphasizing is that compared to what I expected initially from the musical, going way back to before I heard a single song from it 12 years ago, is that I feel this is a show that did not need to go as hard as it does on the music, but it does, and I am so grateful for that. And really, what really impressed me about it is not getting too much into it, but I think it expands on the source material that really gets a lot of emotional depth out of what was there and just really takes advantage of that and is very effective at getting this emotional core and making the audience kind of feel something and feel very moved more than I think a lot of people might be expecting.
Yeah, I can count at least like three or four moments that definitely hit me emotionally watching this. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. First, with my first question, are all the songs from the stage production present in the film, or were
There
some were any cut or were any like added?
There are a few cuts, one of which I'm kind of sad about, but um, ultimately it might have, I get why it was cut. And there is one that was added. And if you watch the movie, you probably can maybe guess which one it is, but ultimately there are both cuts and one single edition. Um, And would you like me to go into detail as to what we have lost, RIP, in the
Yeah,
transition to screen?
I'm
So
gonna guess that what we lost were this like were the story songs because those were just that was just dialogue.
it is. That's actually exactly like that in the stage show.
Oh, okay.
What we lost primarily are there are two kind of short songs that Miss Honey sings as she's trying to help Matilda out. Um, they're both kind of they're similar songs with the same basic melody. There's one called "Pathetic" that she sings as she's about to enter Trunchbull's room to convince her to take Matilda to a higher level, and another one that kind of continues that trend. And probably the biggest cuts in terms of music are there are two songs sung by Matilda's parents. One is a very fun number called Loud that Miss Wormwood sings. And there's another called Telly that her father sings. And it might help to go more into the story before I get into what those songs kind of add, I think. But I get why they were cut in the end.
Hmm.
And the song that was added was Still Holding My Hand, which is the final song of the film, because when adapting musicals to film, there tends to always be a song that they want to contend for the Oscars. I don't think this one's going to end up being there. It is admittedly the song that's not my favorite, but I also get why they added because the show does kind of end without a real finale song. So I do kind of get the conceit, and I'm aware that this is just kind of standard practice when it comes to adaptation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in hindsight, it does feel a bit kind of tacked on compared to the rest of the songs, which again, it was hard to pick like favorites because they're all great.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't we get into the story a little bit, but we'll do it by making our way down the soundtrack.
Yes.
And I have to say, Miracle is Miracle is a great opener and a very creative one for a movie musical specifically.
Yeah, and I do have a lot to say about how they changed it because out of the songs that they kept, that one probably has the most change to it. Um, I will say that I feel that Miracle is the song that if you think it goes hard in the movie, it goes like 110% in the original show, and they have a very different framing device for it.
Ooh.
So the babies that they have in the film, that is not like that in the show. So the framing device in the original show is basically a birthday party, and a bunch of full grown kids are being pretty bratty and insisting how much their parents think they are perfect and amazing. And it's just going very, very full force. And it is kind of a really bombastic song in the stage production. And it's quite a bit longer too. It's, I think about, it's almost like 10 minutes or so in the show. It is quite a bit longer and I think really does hammer in a lot. And I think the thing that this film did was it did shave some stuff to make it fit kind of a 3 act structure, I think, that they wanted to go for.
Yeah, it feels like in the movie they sort of narrowed the focus to, to get to the Wormwoods unexpectedly, according to them, giving birth to Matilda, and that is apparently the worst day of their lives.
And one thing I will also add, this is one of the cuts that they made. In all of the previous adaptations, and this goes back to the book as well, Matilda actually has an older brother who the Wormwoods love, and they dote on him and just ignore Matilda and just push her to the side because the brother is much more malleable to the parents' obsession with TV or telly, as they will say quite frequently. And I think they decided, I don't know why exactly they made the cuts, but I think part of it might be he's admittedly a little bit extraneous to the narrative, and they might have not wanted to go to the trouble of having another younger actor in the film alongside all of the others, because he doesn't really add that much to the plot. He never goes to the school with her, and he's kind of just there. So that is one thing that they did change, and I get why they did it in the end. But it's
was the brother cut just from this film or the musical as a whole?
He was cut just from the film. He exists in the musical.
Ah, gotcha.
And he is in the stage musical. He is not, shall we say, the brightest bulb in the chandelier, and he basically is just able to say like one word at a time just because he's like most likely never read a single book in his life and is just watching telly constantly.
So he basically exists just to be like the polar opposite of Matilda.
Correct.
Yeah, that actually explains like some of the lyrics to the end of Miracle, where Matilda alludes to her dad saying like, put down the book, pick up the remote, essentially.
Yeah. And compared to all of the past versions of the story, I think this one does have the least amount of Roald Dahl's tendency as an author to have this kind of television is bad mentality that exists in a lot of his prior works, which does come across admittedly a bit awkward when it transitions to film, and it's like, don't watch TV, but watch this on TV. Watch this movie.
It's funny, the two recurring themes I've noticed from Dahl's work is like TV is bad and children need to be punished.
Yeah, and I think just going back to the original story, this is not one of the few, but this is one that I think really alludes to the idea, which is why I respect the work, is that this is the work I think where the kids are actually a lot better and treated with more respect than most of the adults. And I think that's why the work really does shine to me. And it feels a little different than I think a lot of his cynical attitude towards punishing kids in his books. This one really punishes the adults that deserve it a lot more.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, and that's probably why you have two adults who are like, the complete antithesis of each other, with Trunchbull being evil incarnate,
Yeah,
and Miss Honey being like, well, her name is pretty on the nose.
yeah.
But getting into the second track, which is another great character beat, Naughty. I really like the rhyming scheme that Minchin gives this song. It flows really well, and the main girl who sings it, Alicia Wire,
Weir, I believe.
Weir.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Alicia Weir. She does a really good job playing this character, and rather than just copying Mara Wilson's performance. Obviously, that was an Americanized version of the character, but here she's really making it her own.
Yeah. And side note, there is a video of the producers telling her that she got the part. It is one of the most touching videos if you can find it. And you can see how overcome with emotion she becomes, and it is just a balm for the soul just to watch that video and her being so happy that she was given this opportunity. And she gives a great performance, and she's really a reason that this film works as well as it does, because there is a sentiment about child actors that I think is kind of unfair. There are a lot that are great at what they do, and I think all of them, including Alicia Weir, obviously, are just really debunking that stereotype and that preconception.
I feel like over the past 10 years or so, that stigma has slowly started to fade away. And I think around the time that Stranger Things premiered, that stigma really started to dissipate.
Yeah. I think to an extent it is still there, but it's it's definitely beginning to kind of just vanish. And I will say I have my thoughts on whether or not uh children should be allowed to be stars, because I think it can lead to a lot of issues, and essentially they are working a full-time job, and which Mara Wilson has discussed many times. So putting that aside, I think all the kids do a great job. I think it's just there's a balancing act I think you need to do, not to get too carried away. But I that's that's a topic for another time, shall we
Oh
say.
yeah. Um, getting into the rest of the cast. I've also said this before, but Emma Thompson. I think Emma Thompson was born to play the type of character, the type of character that Agatha Trunchbull is. But this performance specifically is yeah, no, it's perfect for her.
Yeah, and I think what really helps is she is very clearly having fun just playing this deliciously horrible person, and definitely having the time of her life. And she really just devours the scenery in every scene that she's in.
I also like the other actress who plays the stepsister in Matilda's story about the acrobat and the escapologist.
Yeah.
Her name is Catherine Kingsley, and they did a good job of like matching the two different actors.
Yeah. So I do actually have something interesting to say about the Trunchbull's casting in the stage production, because
Ooh,
there is something I think interesting about their decision. So traditionally in the stage production, the Trunchbull is played by a man, who they really like dress to in essentially a panto drag performance.
hmm.
And they did not do that, and I don't entirely know why that is. I think it might be just because they're trying to avoid some of the controversy that they might have been anticipating in terms of dragon and in stage productions as it relates to stereotyping the trans community. And I don't know entirely if that's why they made that choice. It could also just be that they wanted it to translate more to film. But the original name that was rumored was actually Rafe Fiennes as the Trunchbull before they announced Emma Thompson.
I remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just an interesting change I thought would be something to chew on. And going off on that, one of the controversies surrounding this film in particular is the use of fat suits, which is not necessarily my discussion to have, but I wanted to give it its due. And a lot of people saying that they wish they had cast bigger actors as both Trunchbull and Bruce. And I think there is some value in that discussion. And so I just would like to acknowledge it and say that I think that there is a point to be made there. And you could go on about that. That is not my discussion to have, but it is another thing I think that's worthy of discussing and talking about. Again, in a platform that I think, on a platform that would be good to hear, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point to be made. There should be more plus sized representation, or just more authentic representation in general of just people of all different backgrounds.
Right. And I think, you know, it doesn't, just acknowledging things does not mean to say that, the film is bad because of it, because obviously I love this film. But that doesn't mean that I can't think critically about what is being presented and choices that were made. So just nuance is a thing that exists. Things can exist on multiple levels at once. And if a person is uncomfortable with those choices, that's totally fine. And they should be heard.
On a more positive note, I am a huge fan of casting Lashana Lynch as Miss Honey. Now in the stage play, was Miss Honey like a colorblind casting throughout various productions, or is this the first time that a black actress is playing this character?
I can't really speak to that into this being the first, but what I can say is that to my knowledge, she is most frequently still white in a lot of the productions that I have seen, but I don't think it says anywhere in the script that she can't be black or a person of color. It doesn't say that anywhere in the script, so essentially, yeah.
Okay. And then my next question is going into more detail about the escapologist and the acrobat, because I honestly think that was one of my favorite aspects of the story, is that there is it kind of reminds me of Big Fish a little bit, that there is like a story within a story, but rather than it being just something that Matilda made up, it's something that happened in real life.
Right. So that aspect of the story only appears in the musical. There is no discussion of an escapologist or an acrobat in either the book or the film. So that is exclusive to this show, and that is one of the changes that they made when adapting it to stage.
Oh, and that's something that expand. So that is very clearly an expansion of the source material, but
Yeah.
I like that addition because it expands Matilda's character as someone who is just like wise beyond her years.
Right. Um, in prior versions of the story, and this is one of the things that I believe the creators of the musicals noticed, is that the original book does not have much structure. It is very, this thing happened and then this thing happened. It's a lot of vignettes kind of leading into the general story. And I think they were ultimately wise to kind of give this a more definitive structure and really hone in on the connection that Matilda has to Miss Honey.
Hmm.
Because it's definitely there in the book, and I think more so in the film, but in the original film, I should say. But they really leaned into it in the show for the better, I think, in a way that improves it greatly.
I would kind of have to agree with that. Um, there are a lot of musical numbers in this, so I don't know if we have time to go through all of them, but um, well, I guess if we divide them into the traditional two act structure, what would you say is like if you had to pick a favorite from Act One, what would you say is your favorite?
I'm really torn because I do love a lot of these songs, but um, excluding the ones that we've mentioned because I really like those, I'm really fond of School Song, which I wanted to ask, when did you officially realize what that song was doing?
Um, it it took me till the second like my second viewing to be like, oh wait, the second chorus is the alphabet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that song is just so like it makes that song is kind of just so clever that it makes me angry. And I'm just like, Tim mentioned, why do you make this look so easy? You just did that song and it's just such a simple concept, but the way he really takes advantage of it and just like it would be so easy too, like just to have all of the letters of the alphabet be like just words that start with those letters, but he just fills it with these puns and these like really clever word choices. And it's just like so smart. I'm just in awe of it every time I listen to it, frankly. And the other song that is super catchy is Bruce.
Bruce is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, before we
Yeah.
get any further, I kind of have to shout out the composer Christopher Nightingale, um, because it's the combination of his arrangements with Minchin's lyrics
Yeah.
that make the soundtrack go as hard as it does.
Yeah. He did a really good job. There are some ways that he brings in the music and underscoring a lot of the scenes that I think works so well. And he deserves, I think, just as much credit as Tim Minchin is getting.
Another song from Act One that I really like is "The Hammer"
Yeah,
and the Choky Chant.
yeah, those are both very fun songs. And the way that the actors just do a really good job with those and just milking those numbers.
It is a bit unfortunate that Stephen Graham and Andrea Riceborough don't get their own musical numbers outside of Miracle.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I will have something to say about that. I might get into it now, I think.
all right, yeah. So what exactly are their songs that were cut from the film?
So there are actually a lot of cuts made to their characters as well. um, that I think they just ultimately shaved for time. So in the show, Mrs. Wormwood is an amateur dancer, and she has a dance partner named Rodolfo that she is frequently seen with. Probably something a little more going on there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so so Rodolfo is not in the film. Apparently, there's a photograph because they did film the musical number Loud, which is a bop. You should listen to it if you have the chance. And the circumstance surrounding the song is Miss Honey is trying to convince Miss Wormwood that her daughter is the genius that she is. And Miss Wormwood's whole attitude is, well, to be ahead in the world, you need to be loud because what you say doesn't really matter. It's all about how loud you say it. And it's a big salsa kind of dance number with Rodolfo that they apparently filmed, but had to cut for time, apparently. Andrea Riseborough has said as such. And I'm hoping that they can release a deleted scene the way that Netflix did with a Green Green Dress and Tick Tick Boom, which was another song that was cut from that film.
Oh, yeah. I want to see that now.
Yeah. So, and Netflix did release Green Green Dress as like a bonus feature when Tick Tick Boom came out. Hoping they can do the same for Loud because that is a really, really fun song. And what that song does actually too is that it sets up a contrast to one of the later songs that Matilda sings, Quiet.
Mm.
And it really kind of demonstrates the differences that Matilda has with her parents, but mostly kind of her mom in this situation.
Yeah, because in the film, Quiet is still a great song, but
yeah.
it feels a bit too vague what Matilda is responding to. Like she in the film, it's like Quiet is simply a reaction to just her general situation, like her parents being just the worst at home, school being pretty much like a prison except for Miss Honey's classroom.
Yeah. So there is definitely, I think, a little more buildup in the stage production. And I think it's still ultimately effective in the movie because I think there is something about the song that I think is pretty relatable to a lot of people who are neurodivergent. There is something about that song that I think just cuts to the heart of that.
I was gonna say, like, I can tell exactly who would like fall head over heels for that number.
Yeah, like when I saw the film, that was the song that kind of just eventually broke me. And I will get into the other song that will always break me and never fail, but that'll come into probably very soon. And this actually ties into Act Two of the show quite well because Bruce is the Act One closer of the stage production. And then Act Two begins with Mr. Wormwood's solo number, which is kind of, and I do see why they cut this one, honestly, even more so than they cut Loud, but the song is called Telly, and Mr. Wormwood is kind of singing it actually to the audience. And it just kind of, Act Two basically starts with just him walking on stage and saying, and breaking the fourth wall and saying, I'm going to do my attempt at an accent. There have been a lot of things said in this show that I do not approve of, such as books, and I would like to advocate on behalf of Telly. I'm paraphrasing, but, and he sings a whole like song about how great Telly is, and how because his Telly is so like big, essentially that means like the bigger the Telly, the smarter the man is the motto of that song. Not to get too Freudian with it, but yeah, and it is kind of just one of those songs that's waiting for the people who left to go to the bathroom at intermission to get back to their seats. So it's kind of just one of those placeholder songs before the actual show begins. But it's a very fun number. But in the end, I get why they cut it.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a song that probably wouldn't translate.
Yeah, I think it would I don't think it's impossible, but I think it would be very, very difficult. And also the show is a little over, including intermission, it's a little over 2.5 hours. So they really wanted to make it a much leaner running time. So I get why that was one of the ones that got cut ultimately. And then there is some stuff, and then they go into the song "When I Grow Up," as opposed to the film which I think is, I'll get into why I think it works the way they did it in the film, because there's a lot I want to say about "When I Grow Up."
When I grow up, I think out of the entire soundtrack, again, picking favorites is hard, but this one feels like it was written to be everyone's favorite. And I also really like the way it ends, because it ends on Miss Honey singing, when I grow up, I want like to be brave enough to face the monsters.
Fight the creatures that you have to fight beneath the bed,
Yeah.
as the song says. Yeah.
Uh,
So I have not been able to get through this song without just sobbing. Full disclosure, there is just something about that song that is just breaks my fucking heart every time. And I think its brilliance does come from the double meaning that it has, because kids will like, and it's a song that is working on two different levels, because kids will hear the song and think, oh, it's when I grow up, it's so optimistic, and life will be great and I'll be able to do whatever I want. And then adults will hear it and be like, wow, I had so much optimism for my adulthood that has not turned out the way I thought it would at all. And then you just kind of sit there and like kind of face your own life choices. And there's just something that is so, so devastating about it.
and I think that's why ending with Miss Honey is kind of perfect, because it pretty much it's the perfect punctuation to the message of that song.
Yeah, because in the end, if you will notice, Miss Honey ends the song singing as if she kind of feels that she hasn't really had the chance to grow up yet. Matilda is the only person in that song who does not sing the lyrics "When I Grow Up," because in a sense she was forced to grow up too quickly because of her circumstances.
And that's why instead she is merely reprising Naughty again.
Yeah, right.
The song that broke me was "I'm Here,"
Yeah,
which is like pretty much like one of the lowest points of the story of the acrobat and the escapologist.
Right. Correct. So, yeah. So, what I will say about the show is this really does go into the thing. It's like you go into Matilda and you see like all of what you know about it, and you're just like, oh, this will be so much fun and so whimsical. And then it just hits you with these emotional beats. And it's just suddenly, why am I crying at Matilda? and really, that's just the thesis of like why I think this is so great, because it sets itself up as one thing and then it digs even deeper, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, when did this happen? When did I become so emotional about this?
I'm realizing now that the subgenre of when did I become so emotional, whether that's like animated shows that start as this like bubbly slice of life adventure to dark and depressing, but still kind of keeps its levity, pretty much like the modern age of cartoons, starting with like Adventure Time and ending with Amphibia and the Owl House.
Yeah.
Like that sort of energy is pretty much found like within this musical, and I think that's why I immediately gravitated towards it.
Yeah, because it is heavy. It is very, very heavy. And it really, I think, does tackle how abuse will affect people. And ultimately, it's about two people who are broken by their circumstances who find each other, which I think is why it works as well as it does. It's very Don Bluth in that when he said, you can put kids through so much in a narrative as long as it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
And
Now, as much as I joke about Matilda being a mutant,
yeah,
it still works within the context of this film. Again, it also kind of reminds me a bit of Big Fish, where you know Albert Finney's character is telling this tall tale, but all of that stuff really did happen.
yeah. And in the narrative itself, I think there's like kind of this thing where I think the movie colored people's perceptions of the story a lot because of the way it presents her powers. I think ultimately her telekinetic powers are sort of an afterthought. And the film by Danny DeVito, which again, I do really have a lot of fondness for, they play it up a lot more in that movie, I think, by the point that it happens. And there's another change that I will probably get into by the end of when we talk about the ultimate ending that this has. In that her powers are a result of someone who is being taken advantage of and isn't allowed to really thrive and isn't allowed to do what she needs to, and she isn't being challenged. And because of that, she's given this push that she uses for the greater good. And in the story, it is straight up said that after Matilda, spoiler alert, defeats the Trunchbull, that she loses her powers because she has no need for them anymore.
Hmm.
Because she's finally been challenged. And I think they kind of alluded to it maybe a little bit in the movie, but like they say it a lot more upfront in the book and the stage show. The Danny DeVito film kind of there's like a suggestion of she still had her powers that she would use every now and then, which I think like kind of undercuts the point of them, but it's another discussion. And I think that's really made people think that the powers are a lot more upfront than they are.
Yeah, I think both like cinematically and narratively, the way that her powers are presented in this film, I think are they're in that sweet spot where it's like they're there for exactly the reason they need to be.
Right.
But that leads to my next question. How the hell in the stage show um did they represent the spelling bee climax?
So they made a lot of cinematic flourishes for the film. And in the book and in the musical, it's basically just the chalkboard that scares her away. Because Matilda confronts her essentially from a psychological lens of, I know what you did, you know what you did, get out and leave us alone, or I will haunt you forever.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense because
So, yeah.
in the movie, again, as much as I love to joke about Matilda being a mutant, I can't help but think that the climax of this movie can only exist in a climate that has um has just gotten used to the idea of superheroes.
Yeah. I like at the end of the day, it's a movie. They're going to want to make it a little more cinematic, so that's what they do with that beat. So they just kind of really, really expanded on it just to drive the point home. It's a movie. They're gonna do it.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from it, I want to talk about another great song that Lashana Lynch gets to sing,
Right.
"My House."
Mm-hmm.
And casting directors obviously know what they're doing, but even I was surprised that how great of a singer Lashana Lynch is.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. I was so like she is given such I haven't seen The Woman King just yet, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds like she really and believe me, I'm going to get to it hopefully this week, but from what I've heard, people saying it's amazing how she gives two very different performances in two different movies in the same year and does them both so well.
Having seen both, that is 100% accurate.
And she deserves a lot of praise for this movie, I think, as well. Because that song is it's another like very emotionally taxing song, and she just wrings out so much emotion from it in a way that's really a highlight of the film, I think.
Mm-hmm. And this also calls back to I'm Here, when you
Mhm.
kind of see like the real version of what happened in her childhood,
Yeah,
and it it makes it makes what came before that much more effective.
yeah, yeah, I would have to agree. It is a
So
powerhouse.
uh so now we've arrived at the ending of the film, and again they end on a banger with revolting children.
Yeah, the viral sensation on TikTok. Um, and it is so catchy, and the lyrics again are so brilliant. Again, a lot of double meaning in the song. Um, both both meanings of the word revolting. And that's such a good choice.
Yes,
And to mention you fucking genius.
he is.
All I have to say.
I'm not ready to say that Minchin is as good as Stephen Sondheim, or that he's like the next Sondheim, but give him a few more years and a few more books, and he might get at least three quarters of the way there.
Yeah. And this is just another anecdote about him as it relates to Sondheim. So Sondheim was at one point asked to do a Groundhog musical. Nah, let me let me start that over. Sondheim was recruited and asked to do a musical adaptation of Groundhog Day. Um, and he ended up turning that down and saying, I don't think I can do this. I think the movie is already too good. I don't think there's much that can be done. So Tim Minchin took on that opportunity to do a musical adaptation, also directed by Matthew Warchus, and I think it's actually better than the movie, which sounds very sacrilegious, but that's another piece. It really goes into the emotional depth and expands it in a way that I didn't think was possible, and does it very well. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because that's a great underrated show. More people should check it out.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check this one out too. Hopefully there's a either a pro shot that's unearthed, or kind of like this movie, someone does a movie adaptation of the musical.
Yeah. Or if you want, not saying that I endorse this, you can find some what we in the theater community call slime tutorials. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not saying I endorse it, but you know, those,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
those might exist somewhere if you're willing to look. And moving on.
Um, so as we're wrapping up, I will ask, now that we've kind of broken down Act Two, if you had to choose a favorite. I know it's a difficult task. What would your favorite musical number be from Act Two?
It's also very hard, but um, I would be tempted to say When I Grow Up, but there's a special place in my heart for really most of the songs in Act Two. But so know that I love basically all of those, but yeah, there it is.
Um, I said kind of in my letterbox review that when I grew up and Revolting Children are the ones I defaulted to. But having now seen the movie a second time, I think I'm Here, Quiet, and My House have like also snuck up on me too.
Yeah.
Um, only thing I have left um to say is I think the ending, like like the real end of the story is
Yeah.
really sweet.
Yeah. And I will just bring up some other points of comparison. And I also have a little fact about the movie. I don't know if you're aware. So I'll start with that. Did you realize that a lot of the singing in the film was actually done live?
Hmm.
Which there is a lot of controversy about that in general. Looking at you, Tom Hooper. So, but I think it's done in a way that worked in a way that is very hard to tell unless you know for sure. So, kudos to them for making it work for once.
I have a feeling that whoever it was that decided to uh record like record the singing live, a I think it helps that Matthew Warchus um has directed the show on stage,
Yeah.
so probably had a better had a better approach to the process, and B, they probably all watched Les Mis and be like, let's not do that.
Yeah. Also, this is another fun fact. Um, so as she's known on the internet, Red Beret Girl, her name is also her name in the film is never stated, but her name is in canon Hortensia. Her actress, Misha Garbett, this is not her first musical film that she has.
Oh,
She is one of the mice in Tom Hooper's Cats.
oh,
And I'm not making that up, but it is very funny to me that she is in these two very differently received movie musicals that contrast greatly in quality.
I was not expecting
Yeah.
I was not expecting the pipeline from Tom Hooper disaster piece to honestly the best movie musical since Chicago.
Yeah. And it helps that I believe she was in stage productions of Matilda. I think that probably has a lot to do with it because when you're a British musical theater actor and child, that's probably going to tend to happen. You're going to land in those projects.
Yeah, didn't you say last time that like a handful of the classmates and some of the other extras were in prior productions?
At least a handful. At least a handful. I can't speak for all of them, but it's probably enough because and I will also say, and I'm also just going to go into details about the show that are just kind of extraneous but interesting to know. So, because Matilda is a very demanding role, what they will often do is cast four different girls to play Matilda and trade off. So, because it would be exhausting to do that 8 times a week on stage and also have to do school and all of that. So that is very frequently what is done. So chances are, if you were Matilda on stage, you might find yourself taking on at least a minor role in the film. And
Oh wow, Una Lawrence was Matilda
and
on Broadway.
and Hereditary's Millie Shapiro.
Wow.
Both Una Lawrence and Millie Shapiro were original Broadway Matildas. So more you know. And additionally, something that they do in the stage production that is quite interesting is that they will have adult actors playing some of the older kids in uniform. and just to take on a lot of the choreography and mixing them in with the younger kids in Matilda's class.
Oh, so to like kind of round out the like the choir or the chorus.
Exactly. And also to do some of the very, very demanding choreography. Um, and this is the last thing I will say in terms of what the stage production does, because there's only so much you can do with that. But When I Grow Up had in the stage show, they have a swing. They have a set of swings that will just go back and forth on the stage, and they do this really cool choreography with that. And it's a lot of movement and a lot of gymnastics with the quite impressive swing set during When I Grow Up. And it looks really great on stage. I think they wanted to do something that might translate more to film, but
Yeah, that makes sense. What they do in the film is a little more cinematic.
yeah.
Probably not quite as maximalist as some of the other numbers like Bruce or even the school song.
Yeah. And but on stage it is quite something to see. I think so. If you have the chance to see a production, I believe it is still running in the UK as of now. So if you have a chance, go see that and see how it differs. There's a lot of interesting stuff that you might find that they do.
Awesome. So final thoughts overall as we're kind of winding this thing down.
I think it's ultimately a very good adaptation that knows exactly what story it's telling and knows what to do with it, takes advantage of the medium, and allows it to flow in a way that works for film rather than just doing the show on film or just making a bunch of unnecessary changes that don't elevate the material. They do their own thing. It's its own animal, and I think they really did what they could to make it special. I wish Netflix would have promoted it a lot more. I wish that they had expanded the release more than just having it in select theaters in the beginning of December and then just kind of forgetting about it. Because if I think they had promoted it more, I think that it might be in more awards conversations, frankly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Only other final thoughts that I have to add is that having now seen this movie, I think similar to how Lin-Manuel Miranda made a great transition to film director with Tick Tick Boom, I think Matthew Warchus made a great transition, adapting source material that he's already worked with on stage and improving it, or at least translating it in the best way possible from one medium to another.
So I will also bring up real quick that this is not Matthew Warchus's first film. His first film was in 1999. That one's not really talked about that much because it looks like it didn't get great reviews. But he directed a film in 2014 called Pride that was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. And it was nominated as well for the BAFTA's Best British Film Award, Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Imelda Staunton, and Outstanding Debut by a British Writer, Director, or Producer.
That was him.
That was him.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So this is not entirely his first foray into film.
But I at least hope it's not his last.
I would have to agree.
So yeah, that was our review / discussion of Matilda the Musical. Before we get out of here, Hayden, where can everyone find you online? Whether or not they find you at all.
The answer to that is I am trying to lay low and not be as involved on social media. So I'm just not going to give my information for people to find. As of now, this might be the only place you'll hear my rambling discussions,
Fair enough.
unless you follow me already, in which case I'm so sorry.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Hive at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. We're also on Podchaser, on the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Marquee. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.